So the Xenoblade Chronicles Family Tree is actually a bit crazy. I guess people just really like birds and bees. Alright, at the start of the tree, Klaus runs his experiment and splits the world in two. One half of him remains in the current world and becomes the architect, and the other half is sent into the world of the Bionis and becomes Zanza, the spirit of the Bionis. Galea is also sent into the world of the Bionis with Zanza and becomes Maineth, the spirit of the Mechanis. They both create life on their respective worlds. Maineth creates the Mechon, and eventually the leader Michael is born. His children are Egil and Vanea. And then things get a bit more complicated on Zanza's side. So Klaus, now Zanza, the spirit of the Bionis, spawns a whole bunch of life. Zanza possesses the giant Arglist and eventually is sealed away. Zanza drains the lives of the Homs research team and possesses the body of Shulk. In Shulk's home of Colony 9 are Dunban and Fiora. Dunban and Fiora are siblings. With Fiora, Shulk is a child, Nicole, who gets swept up in the drama of Future Redeemed and eventually becomes the founder of House Ortiz in the city. Descendants of House Ortiz include Timna, Plain, Shiner, Olive, Nisik, and Romero. Also from Colony 9 is Ryan. Ryan meets Charla in their travels. Charla had a fiancé, Godot, but he dies during the story, and a brother, Juju, who did not die. Ryan and Charla have a child named Panacea, who becomes Shulk's student in Future Redeemed and goes on to found House Reid. Notable descendants of House Reid are Shania's parents, Shania's sister, and Shania herself. Over on the fancy winged side of things is the Entia. Emperor Sarayan, a full-blooded Entia, has a children with the Homs woman and his wife Yumea. His child with the Homs woman is Melia. His child with Yumea is Callian. Yumea also has a child with another Homs and has Tyrea, making all of Melia, Callian, and Tyrea half-siblings. Still in the world of the Bionis is Riki, who has 11 kids with his partner Oka. Of these kids, Kino and Nene briefly travel with Shulk and Melia. This Snap-on Riku is either the child of Riki or Kino, but it's probably Riki. Riku goes on to become the secret 7th founder of the city. Okay. Now the Trinity processor consisted of 3 AIs in the original world, Ontos, Logos, and Numa. Ontos went into the world of the Bionis with Klaus and took the form known as Alvis, who worked with the high Entian royal family. When Zanza dies at the end of the game, he returns to his core crystal and they use it to make Origin. Ontos reawakens and later becomes Alpha with no memories of being Alvis, and A eventually splits off from Alpha. The other AI, Logos and Numa, stay behind with the Architect in the old world. The Architect essentially creates the Blades and Titans, and of note, Ozurda is born from the Torna Titan. Amalthus climbs the World Tree to meet the Architect and leaves with the core crystals for Logos and Numa. He awakens Logos as Malos, and he goes on to try and blow up the world. His other blade is Minoth, who eventually goes by the name of Cole and has an adopted granddaughter Iona. Amalthus later becomes the driver for Haze, or Fan, depending on who you're talking to, after her driver Laura dies. Laura's other blade was Jin, who eventually teams up with Malos to form the terrorist organization Torna. Numa is awakened as Mithra by Prince Adam of the Tornan royal family. Adam is the son of the king of Torna, and he's 4th in line for succession. After some trauma, Mithra becomes Pyra. Adam founds a village in Letheria, and eventually Rex is born. But before we go into Rex's crazy tree, let's go back to the Tornan royal family. The king's brother Zatar was 2nd in line for succession for Torna, but after the country falls, he establishes the kingdom of Tantal. Eventually King Eulogimenos, don't at me on that, is born and has a kid named Zeke. His blade is Pandoria, and he eventually has a child named Linka with. Linka goes on to be mentored by Rex in Future Redeemed and eventually establishes House Cassini in the city. Her descendants include Sima, Miori, and the current head of the house, Masha. The empire of Mor Ardain's emperor, Hugo, dies during the story. He was the driver for Bridget and Aegeon. Hugo's brother becomes the emperor, and eventually his descendants include Emperor Niall and Morag, who are cousins. Morag is the driver for Bridget and Niall is the driver for Aegeon, but after Niall has his brief flirt with death, Aegeon can be reawakened by Morag. And now it's time to go back to Rex and get a little weird. So Rex becomes the driver for Pyra, and after the events of the story, Mithra and Pyra get separate bodies. Rex has a child with each of them, and another one with his traveling companion Nia. Rex and Mithra's child has not been named at this point. Rex and Pyra's child is Glimmer, who eventually goes on to found House Rhodes. House Rhodes members include Credo and Tessa. Rex and Nia's kid is Mio. Mio has a kid with Noah named Gondor. Mio also becomes M, and Noah becomes N. Gondor eventually grows old and has his own family. He has 2 grandkids, Matthew and Niall. After the events of the game, Niall goes on to found House Doyle, and Matthew founds House Vandahm. Garrett and Juliet are from House Doyle. Eventually in House Vandahm is Guernica Vandahm, who has his daughter Monica and she has her daughter Gondor. Another Ouroboros candidate, Jansen, is Monica's husband's brother. And lastly, back to Xenoblade 2 again. Tora. Tora's dad is Tatazo and his dad is Susu. Tora created the artificial blade Poppy, so he's like a parent. And that's it. Lands, Uni, Yoren, Tyon, and Senna are just unrelated people. Some people think that Senna is related to Bridget, but that's for the comments to decide. A big thanks to Adius AZ89, who made a post on Reddit that had a family tree of everybody in Xenoblade Chronicles that I looked at for most of this. So yeah, thanks a lot for that. And for everybody else, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, and even hit that subscribe button. Bye!